Get prepared to cringe. How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we're going to talk about this crazy video from the Washington Post that deals with quote-unquote white racial identity. Basically, they're saying that if you are a white person, you benefit from whiteness and white supremacy. It doesn't matter if you're rich, poor, racist, not racist. It doesn't make a difference. You benefit from these white supremacist systems that exist in America, according to them. I don't believe that, but they do. Now, let's go ahead and get into the video straight away because there's a lot to quote unquote unpack here, as the cool kids would say, and we're going to watch it together. So I'm able to pause at certain points and interject. If you want to see the full thing without my commentary, I'll link to that in the description box below. But without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
Racism, racialization, white body supremacy is not episodic, it's structural. Remember that there were thousands of George Floyd before the one that you saw.
Now, this guy right here, Resma Menachem, and I can guarantee you that's not his birth name, but different story, I digress. He has a website and he sells a 5-day course called Semantic Abolition for $117. And what does that really mean? What does this little random combination of words and letters mean? Semantic abolitionism. Basically, if you want to be an anti-racist, if you don't want to be racist anymore, even though before he said something you didn't know you were racist, you can buy this course and you basically be cleansed of all your sins. And while you're on the way out, get you a t-shirt, $50, and you can really be woke and down with the cause. But I digress.
Your bodily response to this horror, right, is not the same thing as you dealing with the structural aspects of this.
George Floyd's death became a deeply personal and racial tragedy for many Americans.
Something's kind of off here. I'm not exactly sure what's going on. I know it's not just me that sees it, but we'll continue.
For the first time, white people were becoming aware of their whiteness and the systemic ways that white supremacy affects all of us.
White people in particular get aroused, get upset, say this is unjust, this isn't right, this shouldn't happen. There's like an awakening that happens. And so part of the
Okay, I got a just elephant in the room observation. Why do you have all these whack job psychologists? Like, what kind of qualifications are there for you to become a psychologist? I mean, I would just, just from guessing, just from, taking a little bit of common sense, which ain't too common anymore, but maybe you should be a little bit sane to be a psychologist when you're dealing with matters of the mind. Maybe I'm just wrong about that, so we keep on going.
their racial identity development is seeing that awakening. What they do with it is really the next piece of it.
In this episode, we're tackling white racial identity and why understanding your whiteness is integral to becoming self-aware as a white person. I'm Nicole Ellis, and this is the new normal.
Now, I just want to say, before we even get into this whole thing, some may ask me, hey, ABL, well, I'll be worried about this is something on the internet. Anybody going to see this? What's where you're wrong. People all the time, they call my show and they say, hey, we're being shown these videos in the workplace. I would not be surprised if right now, as I'm speaking, somebody's saying, yes, I saw this video at my job. They made us go do like mandatory training, because when you're doing mandatory training, what is that really? Okay, sit in front of this video and have that be your mandatory training. This is being taught to adults and also to children. It's a very bad thing.
I am originally from a smaller town in Oklahoma. Whiteness was the default and whiteness was the comfort.
Part of the structure of racism and the way that it's maintained is to keep us from recognizing that racism is a part of our daily lives. And so it's a longer term process of looking at your understanding.
So you see right here on the screen, it says exploring white racial identity will be a lifelong process. So you'll never, it's always a matter of trying to find the next thing to overcome. This is part of critical race theory as well. Everything in society is based on race, and you got to try to find a way to identify it and be able to deal with it. But there's always going to be the next thing. This is why I say, do not give the left an inch, because they'll take every mile from here to the sun.
of yourself in the world, both historically, but also contextually, the family you live in, the community you live in, and what role whiteness plays in that.
The more you kind of dive into that, the more I'm really realizing how deeply rooted racism is into like my everyday thought process. No matter how much you work at that, there's still even almost more work to be done.
A living embodied.
So basically, if you're a white person, you're just automatically racist. Everything that you think about is racist, and you have no control over it because you're white. And that's just, you came up in whiteness, whatever that means. So everything that you think about is going to be racist. And it's, like I said, it's going to be a lifelong process, and it'll never be enough. So there's no point in trying to please anybody or trying to bend over backwards. There's no point in doing that. As long as you're a good person, that's what really matters. In my humble opinion, regardless of what color you are.
Anti-racist culture does not exist among white people. White people got to start getting together, specifically around race.
White accountability groups are really helpful in terms of having a place to process, having a group of people whose responsibility it is to call me on things or to challenge me.
We're unpacking wrong things that we've been taught in history class. I realized that I needed to go back and unpack and reorganize everything that I had learned.
So when I said unpack, as a cool kid say, maybe I misspoke. Just maybe I misspoke. But to speak about what you're speaking about, what did she get taught exactly that was wrong in history class? A lot of these people, they speak in kind of word salad and generalizations and kind of just, they speak directly when they want to speak directly, but they speak in very vague terms to get you to believe the thing that they say to you directly. Prime example, what she's saying right now is not direct at all, but what they say that is direct is, you're white, you grew up in whiteness, and it's going to be a lifelong process for you to fix whatever we see the problem as within you. You see how that works?
Because it was completely through a white lens. Most of us in doing this work have experienced this, where there's a period of deep shame for being white and for acknowledging the harm that our ancestors have caused.
Let's pause right there. Okay, so your ancestors caused harm. Okay, were they in this world alone? Did nobody else's ancestors have any kind of role in anything that happened? If you're talking about probably the elephant in the room, the most obvious thing, you're talking about slavery. All right, was it just your ancestors that engaged in it? I mean, were you even here during slavery? You lucky came straight from Eastern Europe yesterday. Your parents might have came over here through Ellis Island in the 1900s, long before slavery, long after slavery was over with. So what are you even talking about? Even if your family was here during slavery, how about the Africans that captured black slaves and sold them? How about the Arabs that bought slaves from Africans? How about the entire world? Every country basically had slavery within it. Africans enslaved Africans, Europeans enslaved Europeans. There was slavery everywhere. There was slavery here on the continent of North America among the native population. They enslaved each other. The Mayans and the Aztecs. You got all these, they were great warriors, right? Who were they fighting? Who were they killing? Was it the white man before the white man came, or was it other native people? Let's just put things in proper context, shall we?
And that's a very legitimate piece of this work. And we can't ask people of color to hold our hands through the shame piece. That needs to happen with other white people.
When you do that.
So white folks, you heard what she said, you got to shame your fellow white man, whether that be your mama, your daddy, whoever. Shame, shame, shame. And don't rely upon the colors. I mean, people of color to do it for you, right?
For 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, right? You end up with actually a community that is aligned with each other.
In theory, that sounds like a good idea, but I guess I'm curious to hear, what are some of the pitfalls or risks that you run if that's the only step you take?
The biggest answer is white people don't really understand racism.
So that means you too, right? Because you're white. So you're making these generalized statements, these racist statements, and you got all kind of holes that can be poked all in your argument.
And so if I'm relying on other white people to teach me about racism, that can only go so far. I only best understand racism by talking to people who are directly impacted by racism from different perspectives.
So is that me because I'm a person of color? So is that me? So are you going to hear me out when I say that racism ain't really no big problem. It's not really a big thing. And when I do experience racism, it comes from your side, and it's just in the form of mean tweets and things of that nature. That's really what it is. And you guys are trying to make racism back institutional. You're trying to make it happen, but we're the ones trying to fight you. So if I tell you that, are you going to listen, or do you only want to hear what you think is correct and not listen to me? Although you said you want to hear from those that you think are directly impacted by racism. I'm trying to figure it out. If you have an answer, if you're watching this, Miss White Lady, please give me a response. I'd love to hear your answer.
Perspectives. So in addition to having white accountability groups and white accountability buddies, it's also really important to have sustained and meaningful relationships with people of color.
I don't have the ability to like inherently name things as upholding white supremacy or as being racist. My whiteness is going to show up at different points in my life and at different points in different relationships.
So if you can't name it, then how do you even know that it's there? If you can't name things that uphold white supremacy and white racism, what are you actually guilty about? You don't even know. You're just making up stuff. You're not making up anything, actually. You're just making up a narrative to believe in without proving it. And you're outwardly saying that you cannot prove it. So what's the point in believing in it?
But is it fair or healthy to be seeking out relationships with people just to have a diverse network? Because I feel like for people of color, you're kind of constantly trying to gauge whether or not it's worth it to be vulnerable or share how someone hurt you when your white colleagues or co-workers or friends mess up.
There's a different cost for my friends of color to be in relationship with me. So I think one of the things that's really important is ongoing, being a friend on an ongoing basis for lots of different things, not just like thinking about racism as a part of our friendship when there's something horrible that happens. Those relationships are...
This is word salad, really. This is word salad. Have you heard anything concrete except for the fact that white people are racist and white folks? There's a whole lot of blaming on white people, but I've not really heard things that they say are wrong, anything wrong with the so-called systems, any of these systems that need to be broken, anything that you could do to solve it. I've not heard anything like that. All I have is word salad, and this is not nutritionist. They ain't put no anchovies in it, no croutons, no Caesar dressing, no Parmesan cheese flakes, no nothing. I got some old, stale, completely just white lettuce, no green lettuce, no bell peppers, no nothing in my salad. It's not nutritionist. It's just ridiculous.
Number one, for me to be there for them as them for me. It's a relationship, and so it should be reciprocal, but also so that I have a broader understanding of the world.
Everything I thought about how I existed in my white body in the world was very wrong. And I needed this new lens to see the world through. So I think that's been a big piece of my own work.
All right. So you saw that, you heard that. Now, I think I pretty much said all I wanted to say while I was watching the piece with you. That was word salad. There was nothing really there. Nothing of substance. It's like, all right, if you think that the world is racist, the country is racist, give me some things, some actual concrete, tangible things that I could just sink my teeth into that we can try to attack. And it was nothing. It was just, oh, I'm white. Well, I really don't know. I need some black friends, and white this, white that. The white man's the reason why things aren't good. It was weird. What I got from that is white guilt. I think that was a piece for people that are feeling guilty about being white to go and feel more guilty. It's kind of like when you're sad and you're watching a sad movie. That's kind of how it was, in my humble opinion. It wasn't really much there. So as I close, I want to say this. We don't want children to be educated in this way, because a lot of these people, they kind of look like they were raised like this, or they came into the knowledge as they got to be kind of older, but not necessarily an adult, where their brain is still forming. While they're still trying to figure out who they are and where they want to go in their life, they're introduced into this woke kind of ideology, and now they've accepted it. We don't want this to be in schools anymore, which is why we fight so hard against critical race theory. That is the bottom line. But I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? Am I right about what I'm saying? Am I wrong about what I'm saying? Whatever your thoughts on that are, let me know in the comments below. You guys know where I stand. This is super woke stuff. This is wokeness on steroids, and we really don't need it. the black community. I mean, what we needed, like nobody, no American needs this. I feel like it's just a way for a lot of these organizations and people to push political narratives for their friends. Now, what the end goal of these political narratives are, I can't really tell you. Maybe they try and gain some more money through this little phase, this little woke movement that's happening ever since George Floyd. It's been going on for quite a while before George Floyd, but maybe it's just them trying to further push their political narrative. When you have people in office that have these kind of views, they're also going to be kind of anti-capitalist, pro-LGBT. Maybe it's a way to sneak in other things through the back door that the average normie may not see coming. All they want to do is be anti-racist and non-racist. So they buy into these things that are branded as anti-racist and non-racist that are actually racist. And then they're tricked into backing things that are going to hurt not only themselves, but the very same group they purport themselves to be trying to defend. But whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.